All right, everybody, welcome to the program. We've got a lot to get to. Of course, conference finals are over with, and now it's time for the 2025 NBA Finals. We have the Oklahoma City Thunder representing the Western Conference going up against the Indiana Pacers representing the Eastern Conference. Certainly, both of these teams have had dynamic seasons, and now these two teams will have an opportunity to hoist the first NBA championship in franchise history. You know about the Pacers, one of the original ABA franchises. And since they've been in the NBA, they've made a lot of noise, but they have yet to get that first NBA championship. You know about the history of the Oklahoma City Thunder. For many years, they were the Seattle Supersonics. The controversial move to Oklahoma City. They had some great runs during the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden years, and then they kind of went through a little growing pains after those three gentlemen had left. But other than that, there's a resurgence the last several years in OKC, led by SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the reigning MVP, and of course, with the likes of both Jalen Williamses, J-Dub, and J. Will, and of course, Chet Holmgren, also Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein, just to name a few. So we're going to get into all of the big preview of this year's NBA Finals between the Thunder and the Pacers. But first, there have been a lot of moving and shaking in the world of head coaching. So the New York Knicks, they decide to part ways with head coach Tom Thibodeau. After 5 seasons as the head coach of the Knicks, Thibodeau is no longer at the helm. And certainly in his 5 seasons with the Knicks, this was clearly Thibodeau's best year this past season. And during his time with the Knicks, he won an NBA Coach of the Year award in 2021. And, you know, when you think of Tom Thibodeau, you think of a guy that coaches his players hard and, you know, he wants his players to give full effort, not just 100%, but really 125%, and a heavy emphasis on defense. And I really thought that the Knicks would have at least given him another year, maybe 2 more years to get it right. And man, again, Tom Thibodeau, no longer the head coach of the New York Knicks after 5 seasons. And certainly when you think of in 4 out of the 5 seasons, since Thibodeau was the head coach of the Knicks, they went to the playoffs. His second year with the team, they missed the playoffs, but the last 2 years, they lost in the second round. This past year, losing in the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games to the Indiana Pacers. But man, this is definitely a shocker. No one saw this coming, and who knows what's going to happen, especially with the Eastern Conference. It's really going to be wide open next year, especially with the the champion Boston Celtics, with them losing Jason Tatum. Tatum most likely will be out at least a year, maybe a year and a half. So it's going to be wide open, not just with Boston, but with New York and Philadelphia, Indiana, Cleveland, just to name a few of those teams. But again, this was somewhat of a shocker right here. But again, after 5 seasons as the head coach of the New York Knicks, Tom Thibodeau has been fired. And certainly there's a lot of names out there for that potential Knick job. The first candidate that comes to mind is Michael Malone. You know about Michael Malone, 10 seasons as the head coach of the Denver Nuggets, won an NBA championship. He coached Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, just to name a few. And before that, he had some success as the coach of the Sacramento Kings. Malone grew up in the New York City metropolitan area, grew up in northern New Jersey. So he has some ties to that organization. Michael Malone is a candidate. Also, another candidate, Johnny Bryant. Johnny Bryant is an assistant for the Knicks. He was an assistant under Tom Thibodeau. Will the Knicks stay in-house and possibly give Johnny Bryant a shot? Or how about maybe, Jay Wright? I know for years Jay has expressed reluctance to cross over to the NBA, but when Jay Wright was the head coach at Villanova, he coached Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, also Mikal Bridges. Could Jay Wright's name be in the mix as well? We'll see. And then also some other names have been thrown around, like Ime Udoka, the current head coach of the Houston Rockets, and Jason Kidd, head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. Man, it's certainly going to be, there's a lot of names that are being thrown around for that New York Knicks job. And certainly the pressure is on. The pressure's always on in New York, but the pressure's really going to be on for this next season, whoever's going to be the head coach of the New York Knicks, because they got to the Eastern Conference Finals and They really got to show up, because if they don't show up for next year, they're going to go back to what they were before, just a team just searching, looking for answers, the fans getting impatient, and they want a winner, and they found a winner. They found something with Tibbs, but unfortunately, Knicks management said otherwise. And speaking of continuing with coaching changes, the Phoenix Suns have their new head coach, Jordan Ott. So Jordan Ott previously was an assistant with the Cleveland Cavaliers under head coach Kenny Atkinson. Also previously, he served as an assistant with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets. And certainly Jordan Ott, again, a name that I was not familiar with him in the beginning. We'll see how it all works out. But again, a former Cleveland Cavaliers assistant coach, Jordan Ott, will be the new head coach of the Phoenix Suns. This is interesting because now there's reports of Kevin Durant. Maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves could be pursuing him. Maybe, a trade could perhaps could happen. Maybe with Phoenix and the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll see how that plays out. What's KD's future in Phoenix? We know Devin Booker is clear. It's clearly his team as it stands. What's going to happen with Bradley Beal? And I mean, there's a lot of changes and moving parts that are happening in Phoenix. But again, former Cleveland Cavaliers assistant coach Jordan Ott is the new head coach for the Phoenix Suns. All right, so now before we preview this year's NBA Finals, let's take you back to conference finals action. And certainly let's start off with the Western Conference Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. This series was just domination from start to finish for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They handled their business, winning the series in 5 games. Oklahoma City Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the reigning MVP, was just solid from start to finish. Also, you had both Jalen Williamses, J-Dub, J-Will, also Isaiah Joe handled his business. Chet Holmgren was solid in this contest. Isaiah Hardenstein doing his thing in terms of defense and rebounding. And Alex Caruso, I mean, when you talk about one of the guys in the league that can hustle and play tough defense and also a solid shooter, that Alex Caruso is right there amongst the best in terms of getting his hustle on, literally and figuratively, right? And this series was never close from start to finish. And again, Oklahoma City just proving why they were great all season long, not just with the depth in the starting lineup, but with the depth off the bench as well. And again, head coach Mark Daigneault doing another amazing job with the Thunder, as again, the Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games, winning the series 4-1. So the Thunder will make their way to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2012. So while the Thunder will be in the NBA Finals, the Timberwolves, another offseason to think about a lot of things. This is their second straight appearance in the Western Conference Finals, second straight year that they've lost. And there's a lot of questions to be asked with the Timberwolves. I mentioned earlier about the situation with the Phoenix Suns and with them getting their new head coach, but Kevin Durant reports that he's not happy being in Phoenix. There's also been reports that the Timberwolves could try to make a run to land KD in Minneapolis. Anthony Edwards always said that Kevin Durant was his favorite player growing up. Will they make that happen? Ant-Man, KD perhaps? What's going to happen with Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle? How about Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels? I mean, Jaden McDaniels, really one of the unsung heroes for the T-Wolves the last several years, not just with his long-range shooting, but with his defense as well. And there's a lot of questions to be asked. I know Chris Finch, he's going to have his guys ready to go for next year, but man, a lot to watch out for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and what's going to happen with the possibility of them maybe landing Kevin Durant and then going forward what they do with Rudy Gobert, and as I mentioned earlier with Naz Reid, Julius Randle, also Jaden McDaniels, and also Mike Conley. Will he play one more year? Will he commit to maybe 2 more years with the team? Something to think about as well. If you watch the press conference, Anthony Edwards said that not only did he do it for his teammates and for the city of Minneapolis, but most importantly, he thought about Mike Conley. Mike Conley is the tried and true veteran Anthony Edwards has said that Conley's the one that he goes to just in terms of, whenever problems happen and just the maturity, the veteran leadership. What's the future going to hold for Mike Conley? And again, a lot of questions for the Timberwolves. But in the meantime, the Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Minnesota Timberwolves to become the Western Conference champions, winning the series in 5 games, 4-1. And then, of course, we had the rivalry renewed in the Eastern Conference Finals between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. And you talk about a series that was just dramatic, start to finish. The Pacers in overtime winning game 1. Of course, Tyrese Halliburton getting the lucky bounce that sent the game into overtime, and then it was just a back and forth battle, but the Pacers held on to beat the Knicks in overtime, winning game 1. Then after that, game 2 was a thriller as well at the Garden, with the Pacers winning by 5. But the Knicks came back in game 3. They took 1 in Indianapolis, beating the Pacers in 6. And then game 4, we saw the Pacers try to get their home court back, and they will wind up beating the Knicks by 9 points. And then the series shifted back to New York for game 5, where the Knicks would go on to, win easily in that game. And then game 6 returned to Indianapolis, and hey, the Pacers handled their business. I mean, the game was never close. Everybody was just on point. Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam. Also, you had Andrew Nembhard. How about Miles Turner? And also, how about Aaron Nesmith? Aaron Nesmith, Obi Toppin, those guys were so on point for the Pacers. Also, Benedict Mathurin played very well. The Pacers, I mentioned about the depth and the versatility of the Thunder, but the Pacers, they had their depth too, especially offensively, man. They were just knocking down threes like nobody's business. TJ McConnell handled his business as well. And then also too, Rick Carlisle. I mentioned about Mark Daigneault, the head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder, but Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Indiana Pacers, again, another great job he did this year with his Pacers. And again, Indiana would win the series, beating the Knicks in 6 games, winning the series 4-2. So for the Knicks, again, hey, a lot of questions already now. Tom Thibodeau fired from the team as the head coach after 5 seasons. Who's on the hiring watch? Will it be Michael Malone? Will it be Johnny Bryant? Will it be Jay Wright? Will it be, Ime Udoka and Jason Kidd? Their names are already on that watch list as well. Being in New York, the pressure is always on, and especially if you're playing for any New York sports team, every season is a must. Every win is a must win. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And certainly the Knicks, man, whoever their next coach is, it's got to be 10 times better than what it was when Tibbs was there. And you got the talent there. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson. You got to have a guy that's got to be 10 steps ahead of the game, or that they have to set the bar high, because Tibbs set the bar pretty high, but it's got to be even higher who the next coach is going to be. I think Michael Malone would probably be I think he's the best fit for the Knicks job, but we'll see what James Dolan and Leon Rose, what Knicks management is going to do. And it's going to be a lot of questions in New York, certainly going forward, in terms of who they're going to bring in and whatnot. And then will they make any changes once the coaching position is filled? Will they make any trades? Will they move up in this year's draft? We'll see what happens in the Big Apple. But in the meantime, the Indiana Pacers go on to beat the New York Knicks to become the Eastern Conference champions, winning the series in 6, 4-2. So that was a recap of the conference finals. Now it's time to preview this year's NBA Finals. So we have the Indiana Pacers going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So let's start off with the Indiana Pacers, the reigning Eastern Conference champions. Their head coach is Rick Carlisle. You know about Rick, been in the league for a long time, not just as a player, but as a coach as well. And his roster is truly phenomenal, led by Tyrese Halliburton, who was voted, I'm sorry, Tyrese Halliburton, yeah, he was voted. Hard to believe there was a players poll where he was voted the most overrated player in the NBA. Well, overrated Tyrese, he's not. And I tell you what, Tyrese Halliburton within the last several years, he has really come into his own, and he is a star in the NBA and definitely on the verge of becoming a superstar if everything falls into place for the Pacers, especially if they win the championship. So you've got Tyrese Halliburton, who has just been a dynamo of a player since he's arrived in Indiana with the trade from the Sacramento Kings. And then you got Pascal Siakam, who won Eastern Conference, was voted the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. Pascal is a proven winner. He won a title some time ago with the Toronto Raptors, and he brings that championship experience and that championship leadership, the experience. Pascal had one heck of a series in the Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks and was voted Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So you got Halliburton, you've got Siakam, and then of course you have Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Ben Shepherd. You've also got Obi Toppin. How about Miles Turner? You talk about a guy that can really stretch the floor. Not only a guy that can get you points in the paint, also long range shooting, and then his defense is through the roof, blocking shots, getting rebounds, second chance points. Miles Turner has had a season for the record books, especially going into the playoffs. His play has just been outstanding. And again, Rick Carlisle has done an amazing job with this squad. And you know about the Indiana Pacers. This is going to be their first trip to the NBA Finals since 2000, where they took on the Los Angeles Lakers, and unfortunately they lost in 6 games. But if you know the history of the Pacers, one of the original ABA franchises, they won championships in the ABA, but since arriving in the NBA, they have not won an NBA championship as of yet. Could this be the year they get it done? Could this be the year that Halliburton, Siakam, McConnell, Nembhard, Nesmith, Toppin, Turner and company, could this be the year that they finally get that first NBA championship? Only time will tell. But man, when you think of just the Indiana Pacers and the history of that franchise, and just not just with the Pacers, with the NBA, and then previously with the NBA, I mean, not just with the NBA, but previously with the ABA, and just the basketball history of the state of Indiana. When you think of Indiana, it's just a lot of pride and a lot of passion when it comes to the sport of basketball. I mean, not just kids, but adults, men and women, whether they played for their schools or whether they play recreationally, whether they play on the blacktop, at the playground, rec center, wherever. Basketball is just a way of life in the state of Indiana. And like what Rick Carlisle said in the post-game comments when Ernie Johnson was interviewing him, he said, in 49 states, it's just basketball. But in Indiana, it's different. And certainly it is different in the state of Indiana. And certainly those fans have really shown up for their Pacers, and they've been showing up too as well for the other team in the WNBA, the Indiana Fever. But a lot of sports fans are really going to be in a feeding frenzy when that game 3 is going to be in Indianapolis. And certainly congrats to the Indiana Pacers on making their first NBA Finals appearance since the year 2000. Oklahoma City, Mark Daigneault, head coach of the Thunder. Again, consistency. That's been the motto of the Thunder for this season. Consistency. And when you think of consistency, the first player that comes to my mind, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, aka SGA, the reigning league MVP, also the MVP of the Western Conference Finals. Shai does his job, efficient and proficient. That's Shea Gilgis Alexander. And also efficient and proficient are his other teammates like Alex Caruso, like Lou Dort, and Isaiah Hartenstein, and Chet Holmgren, and Isaiah Joe. Also Cason Wallace. And can't forget about Aaron Wiggins and both Jalen Williams, J Dub and J Will. The Thunder have just not missed all season long. And not just with those players, but also with their head coach, Mark Daigneault. And so with the Thunder, this is going to be their first NBA Finals appearance since 2012. The last time that they were in the finals, again, the Thunder were a different team with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and they were a young team, but a team definitely on the rise at that time. And they lost to the Miami Heat in 5 games. Of course, that was LeBron and D Wade, Chris Bosh, Udonis Haslem, and Mike Miller and company. But this team is different. The Thunder, this team is quite different. The Thunder have just been clicking on all cylinders all season long on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. And certainly this is going to pose a challenge for the Thunder because the Pacers, they're known for the sharpshooting. Their offense is really through the roof. Halliburton, Neesmith and company, they're a walking three-pointer. And certainly the Pacers are not afraid to let loose on the three-pointers when necessary. But you know about the history of the Thunder, right? Previously, they were the Seattle Supersonics. Seattle, one of those great NBA cities, and a lot of controversy when the franchise had left. And there's still fans that are upset about that move. And there's still the petitions for the possibility of Seattle maybe getting an NBA franchise again. But after the controversial relocation from Seattle to Oklahoma City, the future seemed bright with landing Kevin Durant, later Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. Major success. And then Durant leaves to go to Golden State. We know what happens with that, wins a couple of titles there. Westbrook wins a league MVP, has success with the team, and then he transitions and is out of OKC. James Harden, he wins a league MVP, success with the Thunder. He leaves to join other teams. But now this is a young nucleus leading the way with SGA and company. So this is the Thunder's, again, this is their first NBA Finals appearance since 2012. And certainly there's a lot riding on this as well, not just for the Pacers, but there's a lot riding for the Thunder as well. And so this should be a fun series. I think this is going to be an exciting series. You've got the Thunder with the depth and the versatility. You've got the Pacers that are primarily known for their deadly shooting, especially their three-point shooting. This is going to be, I believe this is going to go 7 games. But in the end, I think Oklahoma City is going to win this. I like the Thunder to win it in 7 games. And I see Shea Gilgeous Alexander as the finals MVP. All right, we have some news to pass along to you in terms of the All-NBA teams. So let's start off with the All-NBA first team. The forwards are Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks and Jason Tatum from the Boston Celtics. At the center position is Nikola Jokic from the Denver Nuggets. And the guards are Shea Gilgeous Alexander from the Oklahoma City Thunder and Donovan Mitchell from the Cleveland Cavaliers. All-NBA second team, the forwards are LeBron James from the Los Angeles Lakers and Evan Mobley from the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the guards are Jalen Brunson from the New York Knicks, Stephen Curry from the Golden State Warriors, and Anthony Edwards from the Minnesota Timberwolves. And all NBA third team, the forwards are Karl Anthony Towns from the New York Knicks, Jalen Williams, a.k.a. J-Dub, from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the guards are Cade Cunningham from the Detroit Pistons, Tyrese Halliburton from the Indiana Pacers, and James Harden from the Los Angeles Clippers. Let's move over now to the NBA All-Defense First Team. So on the All-Defensive First Team, the forwards are Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors and Amen Thompson from the Houston Rockets. At the center position is Evan Mobley from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the guards are Dyson Daniels from the Atlanta Hawks and Lou Dort from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And all defensive second team, the forwards are Toumani Camara from the Portland Trailblazers, Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies, and Jalen, a.k.a. J-Dub Williams from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the centers are Rudy Gobert from the Minnesota Timberwolves and Ivica Zubac from the Los Angeles Clippers. The NBA All Rookie First Team. We have Stephon Castle from the San Antonio Spurs, Zachary Risache from the Atlanta Hawks, Jalen Wells from the Memphis Grizzlies. Also, his teammate from the Grizzlies, Zach Edey, and Alex Sarr from the Washington Wizards. And the NBA All Rookie Second Team, we have Matas Buzelis from the Chicago Bulls, Bob Carrington from the Washington Wizards, also Donovan Clingan from the Portland Trailblazers. We have Kel'el Ware from the Miami Heat, and we have Yves Missi from the New Orleans Pelicans. And let's move over now to the NBA awards for the 2024-2025 season. So the league MVP, SGA Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the Thunder. Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Representing the San Antonio Spurs, the Rookie of the Year belonged to Stephon Castle. The Sixth Man of the Year is Peyton Pritchard from the Boston Celtics. Most Improved Player of the Year, Dyson Daniels from the Atlanta Hawks. Clutch Player of the Year, Jalen Brunson from the New York Knicks. Coach of the Year, Kenny Atkinson from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Executive of the Year, Sam Presti from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Drew Holiday from the Boston Celtics wins the Sportsmanship Award. Stephen Curry from the Warriors wins the Twyman Stokes Teammate of the Year Award. Drew Holiday, not only does he wins the Sportsmanship Award, he's also the winner of the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Social Justice Champion Award. And Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors wins the NBA Hustle Award. So congratulations to those gentlemen that are won this season's awards, and also those gentlemen that made the All-NBA teams. All right, so before we let you go, and indeed it is the end of an era for those that watched the course of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. It was the last series that really was the end of an era for the NBA on TNT. Of course, you know, TNT will no longer carry the NBA as the new NBA media rights deal will go into effect starting next season. And certainly, again, you think of the NBA on TNT, you think of so many great memories, not just with the NBA, but so many great games that network had, including the countless NBA All-Star weekends. And of course, when you think of the four right inside the NBA with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. And certainly it's the end of an era, and a lot of the great talent that worked on that network, rest in peace to Craig Sager, and just the great talent that worked on that network. And certainly it was the end of an era. And I know each gentleman, Shaquille and Kenny and Charles, and of course Ernie Johnson was the last one to say something with fitting tributes to the NBA on TNT, as well as Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller and the rest of the talent made their, spoke about just working with the great people during their time with the network. And certainly 36 years, man, it was a great run, a partnership that the NBA had with TNT. And certainly it's going to feel different next year. But on the flip side of things, inside the NBA will continue to go on. It'll continue to be produced by TNT, but the show will air on ESPN and ABC. So with the new NBA media rights deal that'll go into effect starting next year, ESPN will air Wednesday night games throughout the season. But ESPN's Friday schedule has been reduced to only selected weeks because Amazon Prime Video will stream games on Friday night. We'll get to Amazon in just a moment, but ESPN will have Wednesday night games throughout the season. ESPN's Friday schedule has been reduced to only selected weeks. NBA Saturday Primetime and NBA Sunday Showcase will continue on ABC, just with games on selected weeks between January and March. ABC and ESPN will continue to have the Christmas Day games, and also ESPN will continue to carry the NBA All-Star Celebrity Game. So ESPN is still in the fold for the new media rights deal. So while we say goodbye to the NBA on TNT, we welcome back an old friend, NBC. The NBA on NBC returns. So NBC will carry Tuesday night doubleheaders. They'll be scheduled at 8 p.m. Eastern and 11 p.m. Eastern. Now, NBC stations can show one or both games at their discretion. So, depending on where you live and how it all works out, NBC stations are given the right to show either one game or they could show the doubleheader. That will be left up to those stations. And NBC will also have an 8-game Sunday night basketball package right after the NFL season is over with. And also NBC will carry games on opening night, Veterans Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, and also NBC will be the new home of the NBA All-Star Weekend, which was previously, the previous home was TNT, but now NBC will be the new home for NBA All-Star Weekend. However, the celebrity game will remain on ESPN. As far as NBA TV and where they currently stand in all of this, a decision has not been made yet on whether NBA TV will continue airing games. Now, as far as the streaming services are concerned, Amazon Prime Video, they will stream up to 66 regular season games, and they'll also have Friday night games throughout the regular season. Remember, ESPN will have Friday games, but only on selected weeks. Amazon Prime Video, they will have Friday night games throughout the season. And also Prime Video will have Thursday night games. They will start streaming Thursday night games after the NFL season is over with. As you know, Prime Video is home to Thursday night football. So they'll have NBA will be on Thursday night on Prime Video after NFL season is over with. And they'll have select Saturday afternoon games. Also, the streaming service, Prime Video, will also be the home of the NBA Cup. So they'll have the entire knockout round of the NBA Cup. So if you're looking for the whole knockout round of the NBA Cup, you have to go over to Prime Video. Also, ESPN Plus will stream ABC's games and select ESPN games. Disney Plus, they will stream select ESPN produced games. Peacock, NBC streaming service, they'll exclusively stream a package of Monday night games, as well as both games of NBC's Tuesday night doubleheader and other select NBC games. And then NBA League Pass, for those that have your NBA League Pass subscriptions, they'll continue to offer out-of-market games. And as far as I mentioned earlier, we're inside the NBA. So as a part of the new deal, ESPN signed a sub-licensing agreement to air TNT's Inside the NBA studio show. It'll only be on select days. We don't know yet what days are they going to be, but it's going to be on select days. TNT will continue to produce the show. Everybody will still be in Atlanta. Ernie, Kenny, Chuck, Shaq, all the whole crew, the whole staff will remain in Atlanta producing the show, but it'll air on ESPN and ABC only on select days. Now, ESPN, their studio show, NBA Countdown, it will continue to air. That's not going anywhere. And NBC, they have their new play-by-play announcers for the NBA, Mike Tirico and Noah Eagle. Reggie Miller and Jamal Crawford will sign on as color commentators. Carmelo Anthony and Vince Carter will be studio analysts, and Michael Jordan will be a special contributor. I wonder what's going to happen with Michael's role at NBC as a contributor. You know, hey, anxious to find out about that. And then Amazon Prime Video, they've got their squad. They've got Ian Eagle and Kevin Harlan will be the play-by-play announcers, and the color commentators will be Stan Van Gundy, Steve Nash, Dwayne Wade, and Candace Parker. And then the studio host will be Taylor Rooks, and studio analysts will be Dirk Nowitzki, Blake Griffin, and Udonis Haslem. So there you have it. That's the new fold right now for the NBA media rights deal going into effect next year. And again, it's going to feel a little bit different. No more NBA on TNT, but hey, inside the NBA, it'll still be produced by the TNT sports staff. It'll just be on ESPN and ABC, just only on select days. And then, of course, ESPN and ABC remain on board. Amazon Prime Video, they'll be on board as well as Peacock, and of course the return of the NBA on NBC. So that certainly should be interesting right there. So that's going to do it for another exciting edition of the program. Until next time, everybody, so long, and you take care. Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Remember to click like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.